The rain had been falling since dawn. Big, heavy drops slid down the cracked front windows of the small, faded house at the end of the block. Inside, 10-year-old Zuri sat on the edge of the worn couch, her knees pulled to her chest, watching the puddles swell on the porch through the screen door. Her thin sweater hung damp from the morning's chores, and her shoes squished when she shifted her feet. She didn't cry. Not anymore. Upstairs, the television mumbled through the walls. Her stepmother, Karen, was probably lying on the bed again, flipping through channels, waiting for her coffee. Zuri had forgotten the sugar that morning. That's what had started it. You think just 'cause you cute and quiet, I won't notice when you half-ass something? Karen had hissed, her voice low and mean. If I wanted flavorless sludge, I'd drink out the damn sink. Zuri had mumbled an apology, eyes cast down. Karen hated when she mumbled. Speak up. I said I'm sorry, Zuri had repeated louder. And that's when Karen threw the mug. It missed, barely, hit the fridge and shattered on the floor. Zuri had frozen, heart hammering, shards at her feet. Karen's face had twisted. I'm tired of your little attitude. You need to learn how good you got it. Some little girls your age are sleeping under bridges, and you act like I owe you something. Zuri didn't respond. She never did. Maybe that's what made it worse. An hour later, Karen came back downstairs with a trash bag. Get your stuff. Zuri blinked. What? I said get your stuff. Pack a bag. You want to act like you don't appreciate this roof? Fine. Go without it for a few days. Let's see how fast you come crawling back. You mean leave? Zuri asked, her voice small. Karen smirked. That's right. You can go play Little Survivor for the weekend. You like to pretend you grown anyway. Zuri looked toward the back hallway, toward her father's room. He'd been sleeping when it started. Or maybe not sleeping, just still and silent, like he often was now. Ever since the accident 6 months ago, he rarely spoke more than a word or two. He used to fill the house with jokes, music, smells of fried catfish and warm grits on Sundays. Now he mostly just stared out the window in his wheelchair. I want to say bye to Daddy, Zuri whispered. Karen scoffed. He don't need to see you right now. He's got enough to worry about without your whining. You'll be back before he even misses you. Zuri packed a backpack with 2 shirts, socks, a toothbrush, and her stuffed bear, Rufus. He was missing one eye and smelled like the inside of the washing machine, but he'd been hers since she could remember. Karen watched from the doorway. Put that bag on and don't come knocking until Monday, she said. Maybe if you're lucky, I'll let you in before school. Then she opened the front door. The rain hadn't let up. It soaked Zuri's braids in seconds. Her fingers clutched Rufus tighter. Karen didn't even look back before slamming the door behind her. The neighborhood was quiet. Most people stayed indoors on days like this. Zuri wandered to the edge of the street, blinking through the curtain of rain. She didn't know where to go. Her friend Anaya lived 5 blocks away, but Anaya's mom was strict and didn't like surprise guests. The corner store was probably closed by now. Mr. Rodney shut early when the weather got bad. Zuri sat under the bus stop shelter, trying to squeeze the wetness out of her sleeves. Across the street, a cat ducked under a porch. A couple walked by with an umbrella, laughing about something. Zuri watched them until they disappeared. She hadn't eaten lunch. She didn't know if she'd eat dinner. Her stomach rumbled, and she hugged Rufus closer. 2 hours passed. The sky darkened. Cars whooshed past without stopping. She wondered if Karen had locked the door behind her. If Daddy knew she was gone. If he cared. No, she shook that thought off. He loved her. She knew that. Before the accident, he used to dance in the kitchen with her, spinning her around by the hands until she got dizzy and collapsed giggling on the floor. He used to say she was his whole world. But now, he could barely move his hands. He couldn't speak right. He tried. She saw it in his eyes. But he wasn't strong enough anymore. That's what scared her the most. It was after dark when the rain finally stopped. Zuri was cold to her bones. She was starting to shiver. She stood up and looked down the block. Streetlights flickered on one by one. The neighborhood looked different at night, stretched out and unfamiliar. She turned and started walking. Halfway down the block, she heard it. The squeak of wheels. She turned. There, rolling slowly down the cracked sidewalk, was her father, wearing his flannel robe, his feet dragging against the pavement, his hands shaking against the rims of his wheelchair wheels. But moving. Zuri froze. He hadn't been outside since the accident. Not once. He was soaked. His head leaned slightly to the left, but his eyes were locked on her. Wide. Searching. When he got close enough, he stopped. It took him a full 30 seconds to get the word out. His lips strained, his mouth trembled, but he said it. Zuri. Tears sprang to her eyes. She dropped Rufus and ran into his lap, throwing her arms around him. He didn't say anything else. He just held her. Weakly, but he held her. And for the first time in a long time, she let herself cry. They sat like that for a long time. Zuri curled on her father's lap, his arms weakly draped around her. The chill in the air had settled into her bones, but in his embrace, there was a small, quiet warmth. She could feel his chest rise and fall under her cheek. Not strong, but steady. I missed you, she whispered. Her father didn't answer, but his fingers twitched on her back like they wanted to say something, like they remembered how to comfort her, even if his mouth couldn't form the words. The rain had stopped, but their clothes were soaked through. Zuri's braids clung to her cheeks, and his robe was heavy with water. We have to get you back inside, Daddy, she said gently. You'll catch a cold. But that house, the one where Karen stood at the window right now, watching them. Zuri could feel her eyes through the curtain, cold and distant. She helped her father turn the wheelchair around. His feet dragged, and the wheels caught on cracks in the sidewalk, but she pushed from behind. They moved slowly toward the porch. Zuri's heart thudded harder the closer they got. What if Karen yelled? What if she slammed the door again? But when they reached the steps, the front door was wide open. Karen stood there, arms crossed, holding a dish towel in one hand. Well, she said flatly, I see the cripple finally decided to play hero. Zuri flinched. Her father blinked hard, trying to say something, but all that came out was a hoarse grunt. His fingers clenched the chair's arms. Karen smirked. What? You think I'm scared of your grunts now? You should have kept that little brat in line before you wrapped your car around a pole. Zuri felt her father tense beneath her hand. Stop it, she said quietly. Karen raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. You don't get to talk about him like that, Zuri said, louder this time. Karen stepped forward. Listen here, you little. But Zuri didn't move. She stood in front of her father, fists clenched. Karen's eyes flicked between them. Then she laughed, dry and sharp. Fine. Whatever. You want to act like a big girl? Sleep in the garage tonight. Both of you. And with that, she turned and disappeared into the house. The garage wasn't heated. It smelled like gasoline, rust, and old paint cans. Zuri helped her father roll over the lip of the threshold and settled him in the corner on the dusty rug. She found an old space heater behind the tool shelf and plugged it in. Then she wrapped them both in the big green blanket from the storage bin. It was itchy, but it was warm. Her father stared at the ceiling, his mouth moving slightly, like he was trying to form words. She turned toward him. You don't have to talk, Daddy, she said softly. I know what you're trying to say. He looked at her, really looked, and his eyes filled with something she couldn't name. She sat beside him, leaned her head against his armrest. I miss how it used to be, she whispered. Before the crash. Before she moved in. He blinked slowly. She makes me feel like I don't belong, Zuri continued. Like I'm just in the way. Her father's hand reached out, trembling, and landed on hers. He squeezed. It was faint, but it was enough. Zuri smiled through tears. I'm going to take care of you, okay? I'll figure it out. You don't have to protect me now. I'll protect you. The next morning, Karen didn't bring breakfast. No eggs. No toast. No nothing. Zuri found a granola bar in the back of the toolbox and split it in half with her father. It was stale, but it was something. She spent the morning tidying the garage, rearranging dusty boxes, and turning the heater toward her father. She cleaned his chair with an old cloth and brushed the leaves out of his lap blanket. He didn't say much, just watched her quietly with those tired, glassy eyes. But when she picked up her backpack and pulled out Rufus, the one-eyed bear, a sound escaped his mouth. A rasp. A breath of something that almost sounded like fish. Zuri blinked. What? His lips moved again. Catfish. She gasped. You want catfish? He blinked once. Zuri beamed. Okay, I'll figure out how to get some. You used to make the best catfish, remember? He blinked again, and a tiny smile twitched at the corner of his mouth. It was the first one she'd seen in 6 months. By afternoon, Zuri had a plan. She remembered that old woman down the block, Miss Loretta, who sometimes gave her a cookie when she walked past. Maybe she'd have food. Maybe she'd help. Zuri left her father bundled in the garage and ran barefoot through the backyard, cutting behind fences and under trees until she reached Miss Loretta's house. She knocked 3 times. When the old woman opened the door, her eyes went wide. Zuri? Baby, what in God's name? Zuri burst into tears. Miss Loretta wrapped her in a warm, soft-smelling hug. An hour later, Zuri returned home with a bag of groceries and a promise from Miss Loretta to check in real soon. Inside the bag was catfish. Real, fresh catfish. Karen was on the couch, half asleep, wine glass in hand. She didn't even look up as Zuri passed. In the garage, she set up a small electric skillet, borrowed from Miss Loretta, and pan-fried the fish like she remembered her daddy doing. The smell filled the air, warm, buttery, crisp. When she handed him a plate, he stared at it. Then, slowly, he took a bite. Tears welled up in his eyes. She was crying, too. They didn't need words. This was home, even if it was just a garage with a heater and a one-eyed bear. The next few days passed in the garage like a fragile truce between Zuri and the world. Every morning, she woke up before the sun, listened to the wind rattle the side paneling, and checked to make sure her father hadn't gotten cold overnight. She carefully adjusted his blanket, combed his thinning hair with her fingers, and whispered, "Good morning, Daddy," even if he never answered the same way back. But something was changing. His eyes followed her more now. His head turned slightly when she moved. And sometimes, his fingers tapped, 3 slow taps, their secret signal from years ago. It used to mean, "I hear you." Now it meant, "I'm still here." Karen hadn't asked about them once. She'd told Zuri to keep the mess out of the house, and that was that. Some nights, Zuri thought she could hear Karen laughing on the phone with someone, talking about useless burdens and how her life had turned into a damn care home. Zuri stayed out of her way. On the 4th morning, Zuri noticed something new. When she handed her father a cup of warm broth, he took it with both hands. His grip was stronger. His wrists didn't shake as much. And when he looked at her, his mouth moved slowly, like he was practicing. Dee. He stopped, closed his eyes, opened them again. Dee Zizu. Zuri dropped the spoon she was holding. "Daddy." He tried again, lips trembling. "Zizi Zuri." A sob caught in her throat. Her hands flew to her face. "You said my name," she cried, laughing through tears. "You really said it." His eyes sparkled, and though the smile was crooked and slow, it was a real smile. "I missed you," he rasped, barely audible. Zuri launched into his arms, careful of his fragile frame, hugging him as tightly as she dared. "I missed you too," she whispered over and over. Later that day, she wheeled him into the backyard. The sun had finally returned after nearly a week of cold drizzle. The sky was the kind of blue that felt like it was trying to apologize for everything. They sat together, facing the patchy grass and the broken fence. I'm getting better," her father whispered. Zuri nodded. "You are." He paused, then added, "But I let her treat you like this." Zuri was quiet for a long time. "She was different when you were strong," she finally said. "Before the crash, she was still mean, but she didn't show it. Not to you." He looked ashamed. "I should have known." "I think part of you did," Zuri whispered. "But you wanted to believe she cared." He sighed deeply, a low rumble in his chest. "That's over now." "What do you mean?" He looked at her, eyes suddenly full of strength. "She's not keeping my daughter in a garage anymore." That evening, as the sun dipped low behind the houses, Zuri helped him up the ramp and into the kitchen. Karen sat at the counter, wine glass half full, scrolling through her phone. She looked up, saw them, and frowned. "Excuse me." Her father's voice was soft, but clear. "Zuri's sleeping inside tonight." Karen blinked. "Oh, so now you talk." "I'm getting better," he said slowly. "And things are changing." Karen stood, folding her arms. "You don't get to make decisions now just because you suddenly remembered how to speak." "I never forgot how to care," he said. "That girl saved me. She feeds me, washes me, keeps me warm. And you? You locked us in the garage and didn't even ask if we were alive." Karen's lips curled. "She's dramatic. A liar. Probably manipulating you." "She's 10, Karen." Zuri stayed quiet, holding the side of his wheelchair. Karen stepped forward, but he raised a hand. "You want to leave?" he said, voice firming. "Go." "But Zuri stays in this house." "And so do I." Karen stared at him. Her jaw clenched. For a moment, it looked like she might scream. But then something cold and mean flickered in her eyes. "You think I won't sue for the house?" "For everything. It's my name on the deed," he said. Karen stormed off. Her heels clicking against the tile echoed in the silence. Zuri exhaled. They had won, for now. That night, Zuri slept in her real bed again. She tucked Rufus the bear beside her and curled into the blanket her mom had made before she passed away. She stared at the ceiling. Something had changed. Not just in the house, in her. She was still 10, but she had taken care of a grown man. She had cooked and fought and loved through silence and hunger. She had looked cruelty in the face and stood tall. She was still a little girl, but now she felt powerful. The morning light crept softly through the window blinds. Zuri blinked awake, at first unsure where she was. Then she remembered. The warmth of her blanket, the feel of her real bed, Rufus the bear tucked under her arm. She was in her room, for the first time in days. No yelling, no rain on a metal garage roof, no cold floor under her back, just quiet. She sat up slowly, the memory of her father's voice still ringing in her ears from the night before. Zuri. The way his mouth had shaped it, broken but full of love. The way he had told Karen to let her back inside. She couldn't stop thinking about it. He was fighting for her again. She slipped out of bed and padded down the hallway. At her father's bedroom door, she knocked softly, then opened it. He was awake, sitting up in bed, already dressed in a clean sweater. She saw the small effort it took for him to sit straight, the tremble in his hand as he adjusted his lap blanket. But he was up, alert, and waiting. "Morning," Zuri said with a smile. He smiled back, crooked and soft. "You look rested." She came and sat beside the bed. "I feel like I slept a whole year." He chuckled. It was a rough sound, and used and dry, but it was laughter. She hesitated. "Do you think she's still mad?" His smile faded. "She probably is," he said. "But we're not afraid of that anymore." Karen didn't say a word to either of them that day. Not at breakfast, not when Zuri helped her father move around the kitchen, not even when Zuri passed her in the hallway. She simply looked through them like they weren't there. But Zuri could see it in her eyes. The storm wasn't over. That afternoon, her father practiced standing for the first time in weeks. Zuri helped brace him at the counter, cheering him on with each small, shaky rise. He wobbled, almost collapsed once, but when he finally stood upright, even for just 3 seconds, he grinned like it was the greatest thing in the world. "You're gonna walk again," she told him confidently. His smile was soft. "I believe that, because you believe it." She hugged him tightly. The next day, everything went quiet. Too quiet. No Karen yelling into her phone. No music blasting from her room. No stomping in heels down the hallway. Zuri peeked into the living room and found it empty. The car was gone from the driveway. "Maybe she left," Zuri whispered to her father. He didn't look convinced. "Don't count on it." Still, they dared to hope. That afternoon, they made grilled cheese together. Zuri cooked while her father sat nearby, reading from an old poetry book. His voice was weak, but he read out loud. "Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars." Zuri didn't know who had written it, but it stayed with her. Later, Zuri went outside to get some air. She brought her notebook with her, sitting on the porch with her legs tucked up under her. She began writing down everything. About the garage, the rain, her dad saying her name, the catfish, Miss Loretta, and Karen's silence. She didn't know why, but it felt important. Suddenly, the sound of tires on gravel made her look up. Karen was back. The car door slammed. Zuri froze. Karen walked up the steps, grocery bags in hand. Her mouth was tight. Her eyes didn't meet Zuri's. "Excuse me," she muttered, pushing past her and into the house. But Zuri had seen something. A paper sticking out of one of the bags. Something with a lawyer's logo on the header. Her stomach dropped. That night, after dinner, Karen called for her father. "We need to talk," she said from the doorway. Zuri started to stand, but her father touched her wrist. "It's okay," he said. "I've got this." She watched him will himself slowly into the living room, chin high. She listened at the door. "I want power of attorney," Karen said plainly. Zuri's heart skipped a beat. "No," her father said. Karen scoffed. "You're not even strong enough to hold a cup some days. She's a child. This house needs someone in charge." "I am in charge," he said. "This is still my home." Karen's voice hardened. "You're making emotional decisions because of that brat." There was a pause. Then her father replied, low and firm, "Her name is Zuri. And she's not a brat. She's my daughter." Zuri felt tears sting her eyes. Karen's voice hissed. "You want to be with her so badly? Fine. I'm leaving. But I'll make sure you regret this. You'll hear from my lawyer." There was no answer. Then the sound of high heels down the hallway. The front door slammed. And silence. The next morning, the house felt different. Lighter. Zuri wandered the kitchen, unsure what to expect. Her father was already up, spooning oatmeal into a bowl, shaking slightly, but doing it on his own. She blinked. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked. He smiled. "A little. But mostly I was thinking." "About what?" He handed her the oatmeal. "About how we move forward. Just us." Zuri sat beside him. It was the first time the door hadn't felt like it might slam shut behind her. For the first time in months, Zuri made pancakes. Real ones, with flour, eggs, and the last bit of vanilla in the back of the cupboard. She even found some blueberries in the freezer and stirred them in like her mom used to, humming softly to herself. The smell filled the kitchen, and her father rolled in from the hallway with a curious smile. "Special occasion?" he asked, voice raspy but steadier. Zuri shrugged, flipping the golden pancake with a proud grin. "I don't know. It just feels like today's different." He looked around the kitchen like he was seeing it for the first time. The old fridge humming. The morning light painting stripes on the tile floor. The sink still dripping from a loose valve. "It does feel different," he said. "Like we got something back." She nodded. "Like the house belongs to us again." They ate slowly, quietly, both savoring not just the food but the moment itself. After everything, this silence wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. After breakfast, Zuri helped him to the living room, and they opened all the curtains. Light poured in, soft and golden, chasing away weeks of gloom. The house didn't feel like a prison anymore. It felt like home. "Think I could try the hallway today?" he asked suddenly. She blinked. "You mean walking?" "With help." She looked at him for a moment. His eyes were full of fire, not the dull flicker from a few weeks ago. "Let's do it." Zuri wrapped a strong belt around his waist, like the physical therapist had taught her months ago. She stood beside him, shoulder to shoulder, and together they inched their way from the couch to the hallway. Step by trembling step, her father moved forward, clutching the cane in his left hand, holding her with the right. Zuri whispered encouragement with every shuffle. "You got it. That's it. Just a little more." When they reached the end of the hall, he was out of breath and sweat dotted his forehead, but he smiled like he'd just won a race. "I did it," he panted. "You crushed it," Zuri laughed, hugging him gently. Over the next week, they found a rhythm. In the mornings, she helped him with exercises. In the afternoons, they cleaned the house room by room, tossing out Karen's old magazines, opening windows, airing out closets that hadn't seen light in months. At night, they watched old DVDs together or read out loud. It was hard. It was slow. But it was theirs. Zuri started doing her homework again, though no one was making her. She made a schedule for herself, used the old kitchen timer to block out time for math and reading. Her father noticed. "You're really serious about this," he said one evening as she scribbled answers into a notebook. "I want to be something one day," she said softly. "I don't want to stay small." He nodded slowly. "You were never small, baby." One afternoon, about 10 days after Karen left, a white envelope arrived in the mailbox. It was from a law firm. Zuri's father stared at it for a long time before opening it. She watched his hands tremble as he unfolded the letter. "Well?" she asked gently. "She's contesting ownership of the house," he said. "She claims she was a caregiver, that she deserves partial rights." Zuri felt a cold wave wash over her. "Can she do that?" He shrugged. "She can try. But I've been the only name on the deed since I bought this place before you were born." "But lawyers are scary," she said. He gave her a small smile. "So are 10-year-old girls who don't give up." The next few days were tense. Every knock on the door made Zuri freeze. Every envelope that arrived gave her a stomachache. She started checking the windows more often, half expecting Karen to show up again. But she didn't. Instead, something else happened. Miss Loretta came by. She was the elderly neighbor who used to bring Zuri cookies and had always waved from her porch. When Karen moved in, Loretta stopped visiting. But now, she stood on the porch with a casserole dish and a warm smile. "I heard she's gone," she said softly. Zuri nodded. "She left 2 weeks ago." "Well then, that's worth a celebration." She handed the dish to Zuri and winked. "Tell your daddy I said hello." Zuri blinked. "You knew she was mean, didn't you?" Loretta's smile faded. "I saw the bruises on your spirit, baby. I just didn't know how to help." Zuri hugged her tightly. "You're helping now." The word spread slowly. Neighbors began stopping by again. A man down the street offered to fix their fence for free. Another dropped off a space heater. Someone else brought groceries. Her father was overwhelmed. I didn't know people still cared like this. They do, Zuri said. They just didn't know how to do it when she was around. One evening, after dinner, her father called her over. I want to tell you something, he said. Something I've been thinking about. She sat cross-legged on the couch beside him. I know I've been quiet for a long time, and I know she made you feel like you were unwanted in your own home. Zuri looked down, nodding. But you never stopped loving me. You never stopped being brave. And I need you to know, when I couldn't talk, I still heard everything. Your voice, it kept me alive. Zuri's throat tightened. I was so scared, Daddy. I know, baby. But you didn't let fear win. That's what heroes do. She leaned into him, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. I love you, she whispered. I love you more, he replied. The next morning began quietly. Zuri woke early and found her father already in the kitchen, pouring himself a cup of coffee. He was moving better now, slower than before the accident, but no longer confined to the wheelchair. He looked more alive each day. Zuri leaned against the doorway and smiled. Look at you, Chef Strong. He chuckled. Well, the coffee's not great, but I didn't burn the house down, so that's progress. They shared breakfast, toast, eggs, and fresh apple slices, and afterwards, Zuri helped him to the porch. The autumn sun peeked between the trees, warming the wooden steps. I might try walking to the mailbox today, he said. Zuri nodded. I'll be right here. She sat on the step while he practiced, slow, measured steps, one after the other, down the short path toward the mailbox. The cane clicked against the concrete, his breathing steady. She was just about to cheer when a black SUV pulled into the driveway. The cane stopped. So did her father. Zuri stood quickly, her heart racing. The SUV door opened, and out stepped a woman. White. In her 50s. Gray cardigan, expensive shoes, tidy hair. A leather purse tucked under her arm. Zuri recognized her instantly. Aunt Cynthia, her father muttered. Zuri's stomach dropped. Karen's sister. Cynthia approached with slow, rehearsed calm. I came to check on you, she said. No one's heard from Karen. We're concerned. Zuri crossed her arms. She left. Cynthia tilted her head. So I've heard. She said you forced her out. Her father took a deep breath. She left of her own choosing. We didn't force anything. Zuri stepped forward. She locked me in a garage during a thunderstorm. She called me names. She starved me. Want me to keep going? Cynthia blinked. I didn't know it was that serious. Zuri nodded slowly. You knew something. You just didn't want to see it. Cynthia's face tightened. I understand this is difficult. No, Zuri cut in. You don't understand. You're here because you're worried about her reputation, not about what she did. Her father placed a hand on Zuri's shoulder. Let me handle this, baby. Zuri stepped back, reluctantly. Her father turned to Cynthia. Karen is gone. She will not return. If she wants to fight in court, she can, but we have truth on our side. That's all I care about now. My daughter and I are rebuilding our lives. Cynthia frowned. She said you were confused, that you weren't in your right mind. She said Zuri was manipulating you. Zuri flinched. Her father's grip on the cane tightened. He straightened as tall as he could. I may not be at full strength, but I am not confused. And if you come here again trying to paint my daughter as anything other than the miracle that kept me alive, I will personally escort you off this property. Cynthia stared at him for a long moment, then turned and walked briskly to her car. She didn't look back. Later that day, Zuri stood in the garage. The catfish tank was still there, though the rain barrel had been emptied. Rufus sat on a crate like a tiny guardian. She knelt beside the crate and touched the dusty concrete. It was strange how something so painful could become a place of strength. She pulled out her notebook and began to write. The walls were thin, but I was strong. The floor was cold, but I had warmth. My fear was loud, but I was louder. That night, she and her father watched old cartoons together. He even laughed a few times, his voice still hoarse but real. Zuri curled up beside him, just like when she was little. You think she'll come back? Zuri asked. He paused. Maybe, but we'll be ready. Zuri nodded. She always looked at me like I didn't belong. You do belong, he said. You always did. Don't let her voice stay in your head. Zuri reached for his hand. She tried to make me disappear. But you didn't. You stayed. That takes more strength than anything she ever had. A week passed. Then two. Life kept moving forward. Zuri started helping neighbors rake leaves for a few dollars here and there. Her father contacted his old employer, and arranged to start remote consulting work, something light, flexible. Money was still tight, but they were okay. One afternoon, Miss Loretta invited them both for dinner. Zuri wore her nicest sweater, the purple one with the silver thread, and her father even shaved. At Loretta's house, they were met with warmth, good food, and laughter. It was the first time in a long while they felt truly welcome. "Y'all are survivors," Loretta said, pouring more sweet tea. "That girl, Karen, she tried to break you. But she didn't win." Zuri looked at her father and smiled. "No, she didn't." Later that night, Zuri sat at her desk, flipping through her notebook. Page after page of pain. And now, finally, some light. She turned to a fresh page and wrote in big, bold letters, "I am still here." It started with a letter. A thick envelope arrived one morning, hand-delivered, not mailed. Zuri opened the door just in time to see a man in a gray suit disappear down the street. No name, no return address, just their house number written neatly on the front. She handed it to her father without a word. He opened it slowly. Inside were official-looking documents, stamped and notarized. Attached was a typed letter. Zuri watched his eyes narrow as he read it. "What is it?" she asked. He let out a long breath and handed it to her. "To Mr. Calvin Reese. We are writing to inform you that Ms. Karen L. Reese, through her legal representative, is claiming partial ownership of the property located at their address, citing non-financial contributions, caregiving duties, and emotional investment during the duration of your marriage. Should you wish to dispute these claims, please contact our office immediately." Zuri stared at the words. "Partial ownership? Emotional investment? She's suing us," she whispered. Her father nodded grimly. "We're trying to scare us into settling." Zuri's stomach turned. "Can she take the house?" "Not if we fight." They spent the next several days pulling out old files. Zuri became her father's assistant. She learned how to sort tax records, organize mortgage payments, and find medical documents, anything that could prove the house was bought and maintained by her father alone. Late one night, as they went through a box labeled Zuri, Birth and School, she found a drawing she'd made in kindergarten. It was a stick figure with wild hair, holding a red balloon. Next to it, "Me and Daddy. Our house. No bad guys allowed." She smiled, then showed it to him. He laughed softly, eyes watery. "Guess you saw this coming before I did." At the courthouse, the filing clerk was a tired-looking woman with glasses and long braids. When she saw Zuri and her father step up with a folder full of documents, she blinked in surprise. "You representing yourselves?" "Yes, ma'am," her father said. She looked at Zuri. "And you're helping?" Zuri nodded. "Good," the woman said with a small smile. "They don't expect that. That's how you win." Over the next weeks, life took on a strange rhythm. By day, Zuri helped file motions, organize paperwork, and practice statements with her dad. By night, she did her homework and wrote in her notebook. Her dreams were filled with courtrooms and closing arguments. The community noticed. Mr. Harlan from down the block lent them a printer. Miss Loretta came by with grocery bags and hugs. The mailman even gave them advice. His brother was a lawyer. One day, a letter arrived from a nonprofit legal center. A woman named Marlene Rodriguez had heard about their case through a neighbor and offered to represent them pro bono. Zuri couldn't believe it. They had a lawyer now. Marlene was tough, fast-talking, and smart. When she came to their house for the first time, she shook Zuri's hand like she was an adult. "You're the one who organized all this?" she asked, flipping through the documents. "Yes," Zuri said. "You ever think about law school?" Zuri blinked. "I'm 10. Marlene smiled. "Start saving." Court was scheduled for 2 months later. But the closer they got to the date, the more Karen tried to twist the story. She posted on Facebook about being abused emotionally and forced out, claimed Zuri was manipulative and that Calvin wasn't mentally capable. Strangers began commenting, some supportive, some cruel. Zuri even got a few dirty looks at the grocery store. It was like being back in the garage, but now the bars were invisible. Her father told her not to read the comments. But she couldn't help it. One evening, after reading a particularly hurtful message, Zuri slammed her laptop shut and ran outside. She sat on the porch steps, arms wrapped around her knees. "I hate her," she whispered into the wind. "I hate her." Her father joined her a few minutes later, sat quietly beside her. "You know," he said, "when people see someone strong, they don't always like it. It scares them. She's lying, and people believe her." He nodded. "Some will." But not everyone. And not forever. Zuri looked at him. What if we lose? He turned to her, his voice steady. Then we'll still have something she'll never understand. What? He smiled. The truth. 1 week before court, Karen's lawyer made an offer, a settlement. If they gave her $50,000 and partial ownership of the house, she'd drop the case. Zuri's father laughed. Marlene didn't. She's desperate, she said. Which means we're close to winning. The night before court, Zuri couldn't sleep. She laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding. What if she had to speak? What if the judge didn't believe them? She grabbed her notebook and wrote. The truth is quiet. The truth doesn't shout. But it stands. Even when everyone else runs. Morning came. Zuri wore her cleanest outfit. A white blouse, dark jeans, and the pink sneakers her dad had bought last Christmas. At the courthouse, the air felt heavy. Karen was already there, standing outside with her lawyer. Her makeup was perfect, her expression cold. Zuri clutched her father's hand tightly. You ready? He asked. No, she said. But I'm going anyway. He smiled. That's my girl. The courthouse smelled of old wood and fresh paint. Zuri's heart pounded so loudly she thought it might drown out the judge's voice. They were ushered into the courtroom, a large, high-ceilinged room with tall windows casting bright sunlight over polished benches. Karen sat across the room, composed and icy. Her lawyer whispered to her occasionally. Zuri sat beside her father and Marlene, gripping the wooden armrest. The judge, an older black woman with sharp eyes and a kind smile, entered and called the room to order. Marlene stood first. Your Honor, we are here to prove that Mr. Calvin Reese is the sole owner of the property located at 1423 Maple Drive, and that any claim of ownership by Ms. Karen Reese is unfounded. She laid out evidence, documents, bank statements, tax filings, mortgage payments, all in Calvin's name. She spoke calmly but firmly, emphasizing how Calvin had cared for the house and for Zuri since birth. Karen's lawyer followed, painting a different picture. He claimed Karen had contributed emotionally and financially during their relationship, that she had a right to the home. He spoke of shared sacrifices and partnership. Zuri felt a knot tighten in her chest. Then came Zuri's moment. Marlene turned to her and said, Ms. Reese, would you like to say something? Zuri swallowed hard but nodded. She stood, adjusted her blouse, and looked directly at the judge. I've lived in that house since I was born, she said, voice clear. My dad took care of me. When things got hard, he kept going for me. Karen left. She didn't want me there. The courtroom was silent. Zuri took a deep breath. She's trying to take away the only home I've ever known. But I'm not going anywhere. The judge nodded, then asked Calvin to speak. He stood, slowly but steadily. I've made mistakes, he said, but I have never stopped loving my daughter. I built that home for her and for me. Whatever our past, she is my family. After hours of back and forth, the judge retired to consider. Zuri sat in the hallway, exhausted. Marlene whispered, You did great. Proud of you. Finally, the judge returned. She cleared her throat. After reviewing all evidence, this court finds in favor of Mr. Calvin Reese and Ms. Zuri Reese. Ms. Karen Reese's claims are dismissed. A weight lifted from Zuri's chest. She looked at her father and smiled. We're going home. The morning sun spilled through the curtains, painting warm stripes on the wooden floor. Zuri woke up feeling lighter than she had in months. The courtroom battle was over. The house was theirs. But more than that, she felt like a new chapter was beginning. Over breakfast, her father smiled at her. You were incredible in court. Zuri blushed. I couldn't have done it without you. They talked about their plans. No more hiding. No more fear. That afternoon, Zuri and her father took a walk through the neighborhood. Neighbors waved and greeted them warmly. Children played in the park, laughter filling the air. For the first time, Zuri felt like she belonged. At home, she opened the old leather journal again. Reading her father's stories, she understood the strength it took to survive. She wrote in her own notebook, filling pages with dreams and hopes. Marlene stopped by, bringing news. Karen has officially dropped all claims, she said. Zuri smiled, relief washing over her. We won. With the weight lifted, Zuri began to rebuild bridges. She reached out to her half-siblings cautiously, hoping to heal wounds. It wasn't easy. Some doors remained closed, but others opened, slowly. Her father started volunteering at the community center, sharing his story. Zuri helped organize neighborhood events, connecting with friends. Together, they were weaving a new family, one built on honesty, love, and resilience. One evening, sitting on the porch, Zuri looked at the stars. She whispered, "We made it, Dad." He squeezed her hand. "Yes, we did." The house no longer felt like just a building. It was home, a symbol of their fight, their love, and their future.